Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I am Jordan Jones. We're back here today after a weird week for Purdue basketball. They are no longer number one in the country after a buzzer-beating loss to Rutgers, though they did bounce back to some degree with a win over North Carolina State that was as uninspiring as you could have possibly imagined. But up next, they head to an event that hasn't been so kind to them in the past, plus some news out of the Purdue football program to get to, and another season is in the books at Ross-Ade Stadium. Where can that venue itself improve as budget concerns related to COVID-19 begin to fade away? We have plenty to talk about here, answer some of your questions as well, but first, as always, follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and while you're there, leave a review if you are so inclined, and tell a friend. If you know someone who loves Purdue sports, likes listening to some podcasts, I know I could listen to podcasts of other people all day myself, so I can't be the only one out there. So tell a friend, send the show out there, and let's grow this thing as we head into 2022. You know, it was a tough night for Purdue at the Rack. No longer the Rack, I've since been informed. Jersey Mike's Arena over in Piscataway. Rutgers 70, Purdue 68. This is a tough loss. It was Purdue's first game ever as the number one team in the country, and Purdue promptly gave that away. Granted, they still played as the number one team in the country on Sunday, but everyone knew that would not be for long. You know, Purdue came out slow in this game. Rutgers went on a big run midway through the first half. Then Purdue kind of fought back. It was close at halftime. Started the second half strong. Purdue leads by 10 midway through the second half. Unable to put it away. Purdue didn't shoot well. Purdue had some open threes at towards the end of the game that, might have put it away. They had some offensive possessions go very poorly. Ron Harper Jr. gives Rutgers the lead. Travion Williams hits the most clutch shot that no one will ever remember because Ron Harper Jr. gets the ball with 3.5 seconds to go, does a step-through Euro step from 35 feet, nails it, ball game. Rutgers wins a game that Purdue had no business losing. Purdue was the much better team, but Rutgers played well. Rutgers played like the better. They weren't even the better team, maybe, but Purdue couldn't put a game away that they should have won. And then Purdue kind of benefited from that same concept on Sunday as they take down North Carolina State 82-72 in overtime. Purdue started the game terribly, and at that point you could feel tension rising quickly through Purdue fans on social media, on message boards. It was bad. They trailed by 4 at halftime and then came out in the second half flat. Purdue was down 12 with 6:10 to play, outscored NC State 20-8 from there on out in regulation, sent it to overtime after a Sasha Stefanovic little floater dropped, little teardrop, and both teams threw away chances to have a last-second shot at the end. Goes to OT. Purdue gets off to a good start. Kevin Keats gets teed up towards the end there that kind of sealed the deal. So Purdue goes 1-1 in a week that, they were double-digit favorites in both games. They, on paper, should have won both these games by a mile, but that's why these games aren't played on paper. That's why you roll the ball out there and play. some takeaways from this week that certainly has Purdue fans a little bit disappointed. Number one, the guard play has to be better. And that's easy to say when you're on a trip where your shots from outside just aren't falling. Purdue had good looks in both games that didn't fall. Purdue missed more wide open threes, especially Jaden Ivey on this trip, than you could have imagined. But unfortunately, there are going to be games when shots don't fall. Purdue has a lot of good three-point shooters on this team, but sometimes the basketball gods just work that way where nothing's falling. When that happens, your guards can't be a negative. Purdue has 3 guards whose number one contribution is their three-point shooting: Isaiah Thompson, Sasha Stefanovic, and Brandon Newman. You have to find ways to produce when you aren't knocking down three-point shots. You have to pass the ball well. You have to contribute to good spacing on offense. Run the offense well. Set screens. And lastly, you have to take good shots. If Isaiah Thompson takes 6 wide open threes in a game and misses them all, you'll live. Those are shots that are going to fall. Same with Brandon Newman. Same with Sasha Stefanovic. You can't force things. And with these guards, Stefanovic got hot at the end of the NC State game. He hit a big-time 3. He had the teardrop, and he hit a couple of free throws. And I think he had a 3 early on in overtime. So he finished this game really strong after starting it very poorly. Sasha Stefanovic did not have a great trip out east. He struggled on defense at times in both games. He didn't shoot great from outside, but credit to him for seeing the course, for not going all woe is me. He finished this strong and got rewarded for it. That play going to the rim was very nice. That's not a play that's in his wheelhouse. He even said, he was just kind of hoping to get it on the rim because he thought Williams or Gillis could get the rebound. Drills that. Good end to the trip, a good note for him to end that trip on, even though there's a lot to improve from. But Brandon Newman and Isaiah Thompson had a tough trip. Especially Newman tried to force himself into a rhythm a little bit. Didn't work. He took some ill-advised shots against Rutgers, and you could tell that frustration boiled over into the NC State game because there were some shots he took that just weren't even close. Matt Painter didn't leave him out there for long. Matt Painter lit him up pretty good, it seemed like. And Isaiah Thompson just wasn't knocking down shots. Eric Hunter got a lot of the crunch time minutes. That's probably the right decision. Eric Hunter is a pretty good defender, and he finished the game strong. But, Hunter's been fine. He hasn't scored all that much, but he's taking good shots for the most part, and that's all you can ask for. So those guards have to be better, and especially when they're handling the ball outside on the perimeter. It goes without saying that when you run a motion offense, you have to make really good decisions with the ball, and you have to be strong with the ball. You can't be casually passing the ball all over the half court because you don't have the space to not get jumped at some point if your passes aren't crisp and with a purpose. And that's what we saw a lot with Purdue. A lot of lazy passes that turned into pick sixes, a lot of weak dribbling, a lot of over dribbling, just not being strong with the ball. Poor decision making is not acceptable for Purdue. They don't have enough guards that can go to the rim other than Jaden Ivey. None of these guys are really skilled at that. So you have to make good decisions with the ball. You have to get it to where it needs to be. You have to make good entry passes to your star big men. If you get them the ball and get out of the way, good things are going to happen a lot of times. But you just have to be good with the ball, and Purdue hasn't been. Jaden Ivey had a very quiet, good trip. He got dialed in, especially at the end of that game against NC State. But at times, things get forced a little bit. Forcing things to the basket, especially when the opposing team is set on defense. They know they're going to force him far out to the right side of the basket. They don't let him get into the paint, force him further out, and he sometimes kind of just puts his head down too much, and the ball gets stolen from him. He loses his dribble. Something happens there. He didn't have a great shooting week from deep. I don't have the stats pulled up. Forgot to do that, but he didn't. I know he made 1 3 against Rutgers. I can't remember if he made one against NC State or not, but got to be better there. It's hard to really say that because I think most of the shots he took were good shots. But at times, Purdue just has to put the ball in his hands and live with the consequences. He's going to do more good than bad, but every once in a while, you are going to get a bad play. Purdue just kind of has to live with that, as frustrating as it could possibly get. He's that good. Purdue did it with Carson Edwards a few years ago. You saw the consequences when, he went 4 of 24 from the field down on a game at IU that Purdue shouldn't have won but did. He about lost them a game up at Minnesota, or he did lose them that game up at Minnesota. Shot horribly from the floor then, but then you saw also what he was capable of in the NCAA tournament. So, Purdue just has to live with that to some degree. Moving into the front court, really weird week at the 4. These matchups were really hard on Caleb First. That's why he didn't play a ton. This wasn't some demotion for him. Ron Harper Jr. and Darion Sebron are guys that just are tough covers, especially for a freshman who isn't the quickest at the 4. That's where First's challenges are. Playing the 4 is on defense, and with Ron Harper Jr. and Darion Sebron, 2 guys that are quick and can get by you, and as we saw especially with Harper, can really get by you when you're running off screens. First didn't stand a chance there against Harper. Against Sebron, it didn't go great either. Mason Gillis had a good week. His energy and effort is so big for this team. He attacks the glass hard. I still don't think he's taken a real bad shot. There was a mid-range that was rushed against North Carolina State. But, other than that, he has been fantastic. And then a ton of praise needs to be given to Ethan Morton. It's not easy to play extended minutes when you aren't regularly getting that. But, he got called into action guarding these guys. And, yes, Ron Harper Jr. hit a couple big shots over him at the end of that game, but they weren't easy shots. They were fadeaways. They were post moves that you'll live with. And then, of course, the 35-footer, so be it. But Morton didn't make mistakes on offense. He didn't turn the ball over much. He played hard. He got the ball where it needed to be. There's a big role for him on this team. He's not going to be a starter. He's not going to be, your number 1 or number 2, or heck, he's the number 5 option on offense when he's on the court. But I'll be interested to see how he continues to get more minutes, because he's going to. He's simply too effective out there. He plays too hard to not get more minutes, and that is a really good thing to have when you look at this team after the week they just had. Travion Williams, no doubt, is this team's unquestioned leader. Unreal week, Big Ten Player of the Week. At Rutgers, 21 points, 11 boards. against NC State. 22 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. An assist away from the first triple-double Purdue's had since Joe Barry Carroll. You almost wonder if Travion's going to get one of those this season. But, the question now, is it time for him to start? I think maybe. I understand the logic of leaning off of him early because he has had the tendency to pick up quick fouls. And he still has that potential to get in foul trouble bad. He reaches a ton. That's concerning. He got called for that offensive foul late at Rutgers that hurt. I guess that's fair. He doesn't have the height that Zach-Edey does, so he has to create some space. But, right now, Travion Williams is just too productive to only get half the minutes. He has to play more, and that's a good problem to have. I think getting him up to 25 to 28 minutes a game is going to be pretty important here. Unfortunately, that means Zach-Edey plays less. He's still been really good. The physicality that other teams have thrown at Zach-Edey has really made a difference. It's not like he's been going up against elite post defenders that have really thrown him off. Against Rutgers, he threw a couple of shots off the backboard early that hurt. He settled in nicely. And the same thing happened against NC State, too. He struggled early on, settled in fine. But it wasn't a great trip for him. I don't know exactly how that rotation is going to go, but Travion Williams has simply been too good to keep on the bench for half the game. He has just been phenomenal. And when you look at this trip, a couple of big picture things. Physicality was Iowa's MO, and you can see that clearly these two teams took something from that. You're going to keep seeing it. Purdue has to adjust. Purdue has to get better there. The guards have to prove that they can not be a negative when they get pressured hard, that they can not fall into the trap of taking bad shots, that they can get the ball into the post cleanly, and that they can knock down the open shots. Past that, I think that's the one thing that, when you look at Purdue's offense, is what could slow it down. Simply dealing with physicality and taking care of the basketball. The downside in the big picture of this road trip is that loss at Rutgers is tough when it comes to the Big Ten. You don't usually get many bad losses that you can be okay with and still win a Big Ten championship. And losing a game at Rutgers as a 12-point favorite, that's a bad loss. That's a loss that costs you a Big Ten title. You look at Illinois. They've got 3 losses on the season. They don't look very great, in my opinion, but lost to Marquette, lost to Cincinnati, lost to Arizona. 3 non-conference losses. Michigan hasn't really put it together yet. They just lost to Minnesota at Chrysler Center, or Chrysler Arena, I guess. That's even worse than what Purdue did. A home loss to Minnesota is inexcusable. Michigan State, Ohio State 2-0, along with Illinois. You can't afford to lose more Big Ten games against bad opponents because you're still going to play Illinois twice. You're going to play Michigan. You're going to play Ohio State. You're going to play Michigan State. These games are important, and you can't throw them away and expect to get Big Ten championship number 25. And in general, you can't afford more of these wake-up calls. If it didn't click that there was room for improvement after that Iowa game, it should have against Rutgers. And I don't know if it did, but if this NC State game didn't alert Purdue that they have a ways to go and that they have to take things seriously, it probably never will. I sure as hell hope that Purdue realized something here, that you have to come out and play hard, and you have to play with a purpose. You have to play like you are underrated, not like you're number one. That's not how this works. That's not how you stay number one. You have to come out and play laser focused every time. And that is when your ability is going to show. That's when it's going to show that you are far better than most of the teams you're going to play against. So, up next, the Crossroads Classic. Purdue takes on Butler. The final iteration of the Crossroads Classic. Indiana really wanted out of this. The Hoosiers claimed that this event prevented them from scheduling a tougher non-conference slate. I'm sure they played no one in non-conference this year. No MTE. They just played the Gavitt games. The Big Ten ACC and the Crossroads are their only three out-of-conference power conference opponents. Just incredible. They better not lose more games like they did against Wisconsin because that'll really hurt them in the tournament. But nonetheless, the final time that Purdue, Butler, Notre Dame, and Indiana all converge on Indianapolis to what is now Gainbridge Fieldhouse, no longer Bankers Life Fieldhouse, and heck, when this event started, it might have still been Conseco Fieldhouse. I'm not positive there, but Purdue 3-7 all time in this. Although, if you wanted to go the spin zone, Purdue lost the first 5 years of it, so Purdue is on a 3-2 little run in their last 5 in the Crossroads Classic, which is bizarre because Purdue has been by far the best program of all of these during the Crossroads Classic era. Only one win over Butler. Purdue is 1-4 against them in this thing. It is just bizarre. It started with Brad Stevens, then it became Chris Holtmann, and then Laval Jordan, who has a Butler team that is not that great. Injuries have been significant for them this year. Butler hasn't had their entire team together for a game yet, which probably, could raise some concern. They're 7-3. Their only notable win, overtime win over Oklahoma last week. They went out to the Maui Invitational. Went 1-2 there with their win coming against Chaminade. So, not a great trip for them. But they've got a lot of experienced players. Bryce Enzi, a lot of these names will probably be familiar. A lot of them were on the 2019 team that Purdue lost to in the Crossroads Classic. Enzi's been hurt most of the year. Bo Hodges hasn't played yet. Guys who have played, Chuck Harris, Jair Bolden, have been pretty good for them at the guard spot. Jaden Taylor, true freshman out of Perry Meridian, he's been good for them this year. I don't think they planned on starting him this early, but he's been good. You've got Aaron Thompson at guard too. Bryce Golden down low has been there forever. So is Aaron Thompson, goodness. But, it could be dangerous. They're an experienced team that hasn't been able to put it together. And I've always felt, since Butler moved to the Big East, that this game should mean more to them because most of their games have no geographical sense to them. They play DePaul, they play Marquette, they play Xavier, and that's like your Midwest ties. You're playing at Villanova, Seton Hall, St. John's, Providence, Georgetown. A lot of it's weird. A lot of it doesn't make sense. So they're going to be ready to go against the in-state team, especially a very good in-state team. They're experienced at guard. They are not strong down low. Purdue should be able to get something going there. Travion Williams, Zach Edey should have a nice day. Purdue doesn't shoot well in this thing. Purdue never shoots well in this event, except for Ryan Klein back in 2016. Purdue does not shoot well at this thing. So maybe getting it down low is a good plan of attack early on for Purdue. They could really use a comfortable win to solidify what they are, to kind of re-stabilize thoughts around the program and, get some positive mojo going back again as they go into the holidays. Going to answer a few basketball questions here. The questions we got, all basketball related. Hammer those out before we switch to football and close this thing out. Do I think differently about Purdue's ceiling after this past week? Can they win it all? Yes. I still think this team has that capability because we have seen it, but part of the season is adapting throughout the year at what teams throw at you. I remember the 2017-18 season when Purdue lost a couple games at the Bahamas, and then they won 19 in a row. And as I tweeted, this trip to the East Coast felt a lot like those losses to Tennessee and Western Kentucky in the Bahamas. Very similar in terms of the feel, but you evolve throughout the season. That team evolved, won 19 in a row, and then teams completely stopped letting Purdue shoot and tried to make Isaac Haas beat them. And that was a recipe for success. That's how Michigan State beat Purdue. In that game, Miles Bridges hit a big shot to win. And that's what Wisconsin did up at the Kohl Center when they took one that, ended Purdue's hopes of the Big Ten title. Bad weeks are going to happen. I don't think this is, time to absolutely break the panic button, but you got to see something. You want to see something positive here as Purdue continues to develop, and especially as they get into what really is Big Ten season after the new year. And then it's the first issue that stands out from this week. I think it's the defensive mindset. You're going to have poor shooting games, and if Purdue shoots somewhat well, they beat Rutgers by double digits because that game gets out of hand in the second half. That game gets to 15 points instead of 10, and Rutgers probably can't come back if Purdue shoots all right. If Purdue shoots all right early on, and they don't start 2 of 12 from 3 against NC State, they're probably not losing by 12 with 6 minutes to play. The defense has been a problem. Teams are getting to the bucket too easily. And when Purdue overhelps and has 3 guys converging, you're allowing too many open threes. And even though these teams, Rutgers and NC State, I don't know why I blanked there for a second. While Rutgers and NC State aren't great shooting teams, you can't leave them just wide open. Doesn't work that way. So I think the defensive mindset is your biggest thing. You have to get out there, you have to play hard, and go be disruptive. That's all you have to do sometimes, is just make a play or two, and that's game-changing. You saw it late against NC State. Now can they do that early in the games? And then finally, the best shot to win the Big Ten outside of Purdue. Yeah, we're 2 games in for most everybody. I would go 3 teams jump out right now in terms of being threats to Purdue to win the Big Ten. Illinois, I think that's an obvious one. Coburn is legit. Alfonso Plummer has been a massive addition for them. Andre Curbelo has been hurt. I don't know what's going on with him, but I don't know when he's going to come back, but they've been fine without him. And not having his turnover problems have probably been good for them. Ohio State has E.J. Liddell, who has probably been the best player in the conference so far, though I think if Travion Williams keeps playing at this rate, that's going to be an interesting conversation. Outside of him, they don't have a ton, but E.J. Liddell makes you worry a lot. And then, don't look now, but Michigan State is looking pretty good. Izzo has a good group up there. He's getting good guard play from Tyson Walker. Max Christie's a game changer for them. They're going to be one to follow as well. Over to the gridiron. Some football news came out this morning as I record here on Monday, December 13th. That was pretty good for Purdue. Aidan O'Connell is back in 2022. an official release from Purdue football's Twitter Monday morning confirmed this. O'Connell's going to be back, year number 6 in the program. Purdue needed this. Purdue really needed this. For starters, it allows for another year of development for Michael Alamo, who very good reviews on him so far. You always hear about how good his arm is, and that's big. The problem is he played in a run-heavy high school offense and didn't throw the ball a ton. So getting comfortable with a pass-heavy offense is going to take some adjustment. You love another year of development for him there. And then Brady Allen coming in, clear red shirt now. You don't have to worry, knock on wood, barring injuries. If Purdue's healthy, O'Connell's healthy, you're not going to see Brady Allen out on the field. And that's really good. And that sets up a big-time quarterback battle in the 2023 fall camp, no doubt. O'Connell, on his career, 69% completion, 38 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That is really good. I didn't quite realize his numbers were that good till I looked today. That's awesome. That's really high-level stuff. And that's going to raise the expectations for Purdue for next year. Purdue hasn't been ranked in the preseason top 25 since 2005, back when Brandon Kirsch led the Boilers into a catastrophe of a season. That was an unmitigated disaster, but that may change next year. Purdue may be ranked in the preseason. I don't know. It's tough to predict that stuff. Purdue doesn't have the name brand. That doesn't help. We'll see how much national coverage they get this offseason. But you have a defined starter coming into next year. And that'll be Jeff Brom's 6th season. This will only be the second time he knew who his quarterback was breaking from spring camp. And even going into spring ball this year, Purdue's going to know. Aidan O'Connell's that starter. You don't have a Sindelar Blau or a Plummer O'Connell battle. You know who your guy is now. And that's going to really help. And that's going to lead into what's going to be an electric week 1 atmosphere at Ross-Ade Stadium. Penn State comes to town. There are a lot of options for how that game is played. I really hope it's not flexed to week 0. But you have the Thursday night kickoff possibility. I know that Ohio State-Minnesota game did excellent ratings in that Thursday night slot on Fox this year. You have the big noon kickoff. You have Fox with a variety of ways to get a game into prime time. And ESPN could always select it for prime time, though I doubt that happens. That this game isn't bigger than some of those neutral site games with big-time programs. So we'll see where this one's played. Very good reason to be excited, though. Music City Bowl talk here. George Karlaftis and David Bell are going to sit out the Music City Bowl to prepare for the draft. That is no surprise at all. If you're one of the few that is upset about this, get real. These guys have a lot more to worry about than this bowl game that is a glorified exhibition. They got a lot of money on the table. Karlaftis is going to be a first rounder by all indications. Sounds like Bell could be a second day guy. There's a lot of money there, and you don't want to risk that to play a meaningless game. I really wish redshirt rules didn't apply to bowl games. I would love to see some new guys out there, some guys who haven't played a lot this year, get some significant reps, see what they can do. And then the last note, Jack Plummer is moving on from the program before the bowl game. Jeff Brom confirmed that in his media availability. Makes sense. Plummer out taking visits, looking for his new home for next year. Will be interesting to see where he ends up, because I think he's going to end up somewhere pretty good. I could see him being a Power 5 level starter next year. The portal's going crazy. Over 1,000 names in it already. Only one guy coming to Purdue so far, Bryce Hampton, a corner from Adams State. I can't tell you a thing about him. He sounds like he can play anywhere in the back end, in the secondary there. I will add, Purdue brings back Corey Trice coming off a knee injury, and Jamari Brown at corner, Cam Allen, Marvin Grant at safety. I don't know about Chris Jefferson. He may be back. He played the nickel for Purdue this year. And then you've got Sanusi Kane, Anthony Romph, Brandon Callaway, Ricky Smith, Javon Grigsby. A lot of depth there. A lot of guys who could see the field. So, Hampton's by no means coming in as a guaranteed starter. I'll be shocked if he starts. But it's always good to have depth. You can never have enough corners. Purdue saw that this year. Had they not had Jamari Brown, this season would have been different. I have no doubt about that. And then high school news, Joseph Jefferson, 2022 safety down from Indy at Pike High School. He committed. A little late ad there right before signing day. I can't tell you much about him. He had Power 5 interest from Utah and Purdue. That is 20 commits for this class. That seems like a high number. I have no idea what the scholarship grid looks like. Trying to come up with numbers on that is nearly impossible. So, 20 commits, National Signing Day on Wednesday this week. We will, see if anyone flakes last minute, but Purdue is expected to sign 20 there. And then the transfer portal will continue to add guys as well. I wanted to end with a little bit of talk. There was a report, you saw it on Twitter, Brian Newbert from Golden Black said that it sounds like Purdue is ready to look at renovating Ross-Ade Stadium again. You can't ever completely stop renovating things anymore in the arm race that is college football. You just can't do it because everyone is putting ridiculous amounts of money into this sport. You just saw it this offseason. And it's not even the offseason yet, but this coaching season, good Lord, there is tons of money flying around. Purdue's got to do its part. We'll see what happens with Jeff Brom. We'll see if contract extensions get anywhere. But looking at Ross-Ade renovations, a few things that I think Purdue needs to look at here. Number one, and this is probably everyone's top priority, but you've got to do something with the south end zone. In 2014 or 2015, I can't remember which year that beer garden opened up in the south end zone. It was really unique then because most schools were not selling alcohol in their on-campus stadiums. It was reserved only, for the most part, to those schools that played in off-campus NFL stadiums. Now, pretty much everyone sells beer at stadiums. At least, most do. I know Michigan doesn't. Maybe they do now. Notre Dame doesn't. But most places do. Now it's probably time to do something with that beer garden. The last seating that was there was torn out because it was structurally unsafe. Didn't have much of a choice there. The beer garden served its purpose. I liked the view of Cary Quad and the turning colors of the trees there right before the building. Thought that was nice, but it's probably time to do something there instead of leaving it wide open for a tent. And, the tent went away this year too. Added some food trucks in there. Probably time for something else. I don't have great ideas. I know there's been talks of kind of walling it off there with some brick. I've never seen a fantastic rendition of what could be done, but I don't think adding seating there is what needs to be done. I don't think adding seating in general is important. Purdue football tweeted out this past week they were 8th nationally in seating capacity percentage. That's pretty awesome. I kind of learned in econ class, if you keep supply low, demand is going to be high. And 57,000 seats isn't necessarily low when you look at things just from a realistic standpoint. But if you can fill the place, that's huge. Empty seats are never a good look. It is tough to recruit against. It's tough to promote your brand with empty seat pictures. I mean, we saw Purdue get 4 or 5 years out of a picture from the Notre Dame game in 2013 because it's the only time that stadium was remotely full in the Darrell Hazell era. So keeping that thing full is huge, and you want to make sure it's at a capacity that you can fill every game, not just when Ohio State comes to town. You want to fill it up for the non-conference. You want to fill it up for the Big Ten, not just the big games with the fan bases that travel well. I know in a survey that Purdue put out a while back, they talked about an upper deck on the east sideline, removing some rows from the top and making a deck. That's not a big priority for me. I don't know how much that moves the needle. I can't speak to the view from way up on the east sideline. I've never been up there. But I think there are better ways to allocate resources than that. And then finally, I would like to see some signage return to the press box. Before the 2018 season, the old signage that said Purdue University on the left-hand side, if you're looking at it from inside the stadium, and Ross-Ade Stadium on the right side, that signage was removed. I'd like to see something there. I don't have, great ideas, but put something there. Some decor could be nice for it there. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for spending some time with me. We'll be back here next week after the Crossroads Classic. Talk about that, and we will have some bowl game preview ready to go as well here in the coming weeks. Follow me on Twitter @BoilersBeyond. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts so you don't miss that next episode. Until next week, continue to enjoy the holiday season.